Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. Section 1. The Cheese of Life. What this story can teach you. What if everything you rely on, your job, your relationships, your identity, suddenly disappeared? Would you freeze or move forward? That's not just a dramatic question. It's a reality many people face every day. Life shifts, circumstances change, and in those moments, you're left with two choices: resist the change and suffer, or adapt and grow. Who Moved My Cheese? By Spencer Johnson is a deceptively simple story that holds profound wisdom for anyone standing at the crossroads of change. Whether you're facing a job loss, a breakup, a business pivot, or an internal identity crisis, this story offers a clear and motivating roadmap for how to respond when life stops going according to plan. The book is told as a parable, a story within a story, about four characters: two mice, Sniff and Scurry, and two little people, Hem and Haw. These characters live in a maze and spend their days searching for cheese. But the cheese isn't just cheese. It's a metaphor for what we want in life: love, money, success, security, happiness, purpose. The maze represents the world we navigate to get it: our careers, relationships, goals, and paths. When the cheese moves, as it inevitably does, each character responds differently. Some move with it, others deny it, and cling to the past. And that simple divergence in behavior holds the key to whether we thrive in change or become paralyzed by it. This story, though short, lands like a punch to the gut for anyone who's ever clung to the past, hoping things would go back to normal. It's a mirror. It forces us to ask, how do I handle change? And more importantly, am I willing to let go of the old cheese to find new opportunities? This matters more than most people realize, because at the heart of so much human suffering is the refusal to accept that change is part of life. We spend energy fighting reality, mourning what was, and hoping for stability in a world that is constantly evolving. But once you realize that the cheese will always move, and that your power lies in your response, you unlock a kind of freedom that most never experience. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Millions of people lost their jobs, homes, and sense of identity overnight. The cheese was moved massively, but the outcomes varied wildly depending on how people responded. Some waited, hoping the old jobs would come back, stuck in a loop of fear and resentment. Others looked around the maze, noticed new opportunities, retrained, pivoted careers, and reinvented their lives. It wasn't easy, but they moved with the cheese, and many came out stronger. What made the difference wasn't intelligence or education. It was mindset. It was the courage to adapt. That's the gift this story offers, a blueprint for navigating life's inevitable changes. It helps us understand that our suffering often comes not from the change itself, but from our resistance to it. When the cheese moves, you don't have to panic. You don't have to cling to the past. You can choose to move forward. That doesn't mean pretending change is easy. It means realizing that growth is always possible. And the sooner you embrace the shift, the sooner you discover new cheese, new opportunities, relationships, ideas, and perspectives that you never would have found if you stayed stuck where you were. Applying this metaphor to real life begins with awareness. Ask yourself, what is the cheese in my life? Maybe it's your job title, your relationship status, your role in your family, or your financial situation. Now ask, am I clinging to it too tightly? The truth is, most of us have something we're afraid to lose. We fear the uncertainty that comes with letting go. But clinging to old cheese only leads to rot. The world doesn't wait for us to catch up. The faster we accept the change, the faster we can begin the search for something better. Let's take a deeper look at that. Imagine someone who has built their identity around being successful in a traditional career, maybe a corporate executive who climbed the ladder for 20 years. Then suddenly, due to restructuring, they're let go. Their cheese is gone. They can spend the next year in bitterness, talking about how unfair the system is. Or they can realize that the skills they've developed are valuable in many other ways: consulting, coaching, and launching a startup. The maze didn't disappear. The cheese just moved. And so must they. This story isn't just for big career moments or economic collapses. It applies just as powerfully to our personal lives. Relationships evolve, friendships fade, goals change. Even our own desires can shift over time. If you're clinging to the idea of who you used to be, or who you thought you should become, you might be missing the chance to step into who you're meant to be now. Change isn't a betrayal of your past, it's a bridge to your future. So how do you begin to apply this in your own life? Start by observing your own reactions to change. Are you more like sniff and scurry, quick to notice and quick to move? Or are you more like hem and haw, resistant, fearful, stuck in what was? Neither is right or wrong, but one is certainly more empowering. Next, begin training yourself to expect change. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a proactive one. Just as you check your bank balance or your calendar, check your cheese. Is it still there? Is it still fulfilling? Is it starting to run out? If so, it's time to lace up your sneakers and hit the maze. Also, don't underestimate the power of environment. The characters in the story navigate a literal maze, but so do we. Your environment includes your workplace, your social circle, your habits, and your mental space. Surround yourself with people who adapt, not those who cling. Create rituals that prepare you for change, like journaling, reflection, learning new skills, or regularly evaluating your goals. If you train your brain to see change as a challenge instead of a threat, you'll begin to look forward to the search for new cheese. Now, I'll leave you with a reflective challenge. What is the cheese in your life that you're afraid to lose? Take a moment. Write it down. Be honest with yourself. And then ask, what would I do if that cheese disappeared tomorrow? That question alone can open doors you didn't know existed. Because change isn't something to survive. It's something to grow through. In the coming sections, we'll walk through each character, each lesson, and each piece of writing on the wall from this incredible story. You'll learn how to anticipate change, how to act despite fear, and how to find new cheese when the old supply runs dry. So stick with me, because by the end of this journey, you won't just be inspired. You'll be equipped to take action, to let go, and to move boldly in the direction of your next chapter. Let's begin this maze together. Section 2. The Maze and the Cheese. Understanding the metaphor. Life is a maze. That's one of the simplest yet most powerful metaphors you'll ever hear. And in Who Moved My Cheese, Spencer Johnson makes it come alive. Every day, you wake up and step into the maze of your own life. You navigate through corridors of decisions, hit dead ends, find unexpected shortcuts, run into challenges, and sometimes discover little victories. But what are you searching for in that maze? That's where the cheese comes in. In this story, the cheese represents what we all chase: success, love, health, peace of mind, fulfillment, security, and recognition. Whatever your version of happiness is, that's your cheese, and your maze is the path you've chosen to find it. Understanding this metaphor is more than just clever symbolism. It's essential if you want to stop wandering aimlessly through life. Too many people are trapped in mazes they never chose, chasing cheese they never actually wanted. They pursue careers because of parental pressure, relationships out of fear of being alone, or societal milestones because they think it's what you're supposed to do. But what happens when they reach the cheese and realize it's not satisfying? That's the danger of not being intentional. If you don't define what your cheese is, what truly matters to you, you'll spend years running through corridors that lead nowhere meaningful. Let's break this down. The maze is not your enemy. It's just the environment you must navigate. It includes your job, your habits, your relationships, your decisions, your community, and even your inner dialogue. It changes constantly. Some paths are smooth, others are full of traps. Sometimes you get lucky and stumble upon a hidden passage that leads to more cheese. Other times, a path that looked promising leads to a dead end. That's the nature of the maze. But the real key isn't avoiding the maze. It's learning to navigate it with purpose. The cheese, however, is deeply personal. For one person, it might be building a successful business. For another, it's finding a loving relationship. Someone else might crave inner peace, spiritual growth, or physical health. There is no right or wrong cheese. What matters is clarity. If you don't know what your cheese is, you'll chase what everyone else is chasing, hoping it will make you happy. That's a dangerous way to live. It's like running a race and realizing halfway through that you're on the wrong track. Take, for example, the story of a high-powered executive named Lisa. On the outside, she had everything: a seven-figure income, a sleek office in a glass tower, international business travel, and a team of hundreds. But inside, she was running on fumes. The cheese she had been chasing, status, money, and power, wasn't feeding her soul. Deep down, she always dreamed of opening a small bakery, something cozy and community-centered. For years, she ignored that pull, telling herself it was unrealistic or foolish. But after a health scare and a particularly grueling year, she finally stepped back and asked, "Is this the cheese I want, or the cheese I settled for?" That question changed everything. She walked away from the corporate maze and into a new one with flour, ovens, early mornings, and genuine joy. Today, her bakery is thriving, and more importantly, she's thriving. Lisa's story isn't about everyone quitting their jobs to become bakers. It's about alignment. It's about the courage to question whether the cheese you're pursuing is actually yours. Because here's the hard truth: if you don't define your cheese, someone else will. Society is more than happy to hand you a prepackaged idea of success. But only you know what makes your heart beat faster. Only you know the life you secretly imagine when no one's watching. And that's the cheese you owe it to yourself to find. So how do you start applying this metaphor in your life? First, identify what cheese you're currently chasing. Be honest. Write it down. Is it money, status, love, freedom, control, health, recognition? Now ask yourself, did I choose this cheese, or did I inherit it from someone else's expectations? That question alone can be a wake-up call. Next, look at the maze you're in. Is it aligned with your cheese? If your goal is peace and freedom, but your maze is built on stress and 80-hour work weeks, something's off. If your cheese is love and connection, but your maze is isolation and emotional walls, it's time for a new path. Here's a powerful exercise. Map your maze. Literally, draw it out. On one end, write your current position, your job, your daily habits, your environment, your mental state. On the other end, write your desired cheese, what you truly want. Then start connecting the two. What stands in your way? What detours have you taken? What paths have you ignored because they seemed risky? This visual can be incredibly clarifying. It helps you see that while the maze might be complex, there is a way forward. You just have to be willing to move. It's also important to remember that your cheese can change over time. What satisfied you at 25 might not fulfill you at 45. That's okay. Growth often requires adjusting your direction. The problem isn't in the change, it's in the refusal to acknowledge it. Don't keep chasing old cheese because of past effort. That's like staying in a movie you hate just because you bought the ticket. Cut your losses. Reroute. The maze is full of new paths, but you'll only find them if you're willing to let go of the map you drew years ago. This metaphor also applies in moments of crisis. When the cheese is unexpectedly moved, when a job is lost, a relationship ends, or your health changes, you're forced to ask, now what? It's easy to panic or freeze, but if you've already done the work of defining your cheese and understanding your maze, you'll be better prepared to respond. You won't be as thrown off because you'll understand that this is just part of the journey. Cheese gets moved, mazes shift, but you know what you're looking for, and you know how to keep moving forward. As we continue exploring this story, we'll meet the characters who live in the maze. Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw, and learn how each of them responds to change. But before we get to that, I want to leave you with a challenge. Map your maze. Seriously, take out a pen and paper, or open a blank document, and draw the starting point of where you are today. Then, define your cheese, what you really want. Not what looks good on Instagram, not what your parents wanted, not what your friends expect. You. Then draw the paths you think might connect the two. Include the fears, the dead ends, the obstacles. And then, ask yourself, what's my next step? Because here's the truth. You're already in the maze. You're already moving. The only question is, are you moving toward your cheese or someone else's? Section 3. Meet Sniff and Scurry, the simple side of us. Let's take a moment to meet two of the most unlikely teachers you'll ever encounter. Sniff and Scurry. They're not CEOs, scholars, or gurus. They're mice. That's right. In Spencer Johnson's Who Moved My Cheese, these two tiny characters represent something powerful. The instinctive, uncomplicated parts of ourselves that notice change and respond quickly. Sniff has a nose for change. He can sense when the environment is shifting. Scurry doesn't wait. He laces up his sneakers and bolts in the direction of the new cheese. Together, they offer a lesson that many of us, especially in our complex, overthinking, high-pressure world, desperately need to hear. Sometimes, simplicity wins. Sniff and Scurry don't complicate things. They don't sit around debating whether the cheese should have moved. They don't get stuck in existential dread, asking why this always happens to them. They don't craft elaborate theories about the meaning of cheese or how unfair the maze is. They notice. They move. That's it. And that instinctual, action-oriented behavior often outperforms the most intelligent strategies if those strategies are slowed down by fear, pride, or perfectionism. We all have a little Sniff and Scurry inside us. Sniff is that intuitive voice that says, something's not right here, or things are about to change. It's your gut sense that a job is no longer secure, that a relationship is fading, that the market is shifting, or that your energy is being drained. It's not always loud, but it's usually accurate. And Scurry is the part of you that acts before it's too late. It's the doer, the initiator, the part that says, let's not wait to be 100% certain. let's try something now. Sniff and scurry don't need perfect data. They trust their instincts and keep moving. So why does this matter so much? Because modern life often rewards overthinking. We analyze, plan, second-guess, and hesitate. We wait for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect sign. But while we're waiting, the cheese is disappearing. The maze is shifting. And by the time we're finally ready, it's too late. Sniff and scurry remind us that readiness isn't the goal. Responsiveness is. You don't have to figure out every detail to take the next step. You just have to be willing to move when change comes knocking. In today's fast-paced world, acting quickly can make the difference between success and stagnation. Take the world of entrepreneurship, for example. In 2020, when the global pandemic flipped the economy upside down, businesses had a choice: adapt or close. Many traditional models collapsed overnight, but some entrepreneurs, channeling their inner sniff and scurry, saw the writing on the wall early and pivoted fast. Restaurants launched delivery services within days. Fitness instructors moved to Zoom classes. Retailers set up online stores almost overnight. These weren't always polished solutions, but they were fast. And because they moved quickly, they survived, and many even thrived, while others waited, debated, and faded away. Consider the story of a small gym owner named Mike. As soon as lockdowns hit, he sensed it wasn't going to be a short disruption. While others were waiting for things to go back to normal, Mike sniffed the change and scurried into action. Within 72 hours, he transformed his garage into a live-stream studio, offering daily fitness classes online. He rented out gym equipment to members and created a digital coaching app. It wasn't perfect, but it kept his clients engaged and his revenue flowing. By the time other gyms were scrambling months later, Mike had built a full digital fitness platform that now supplements his in-person services. He didn't overthink, he just moved. That's the sniff and scurry approach in action. So how can you tap into this side of yourself? Start by paying attention to your environment. Be like Sniff. Notice subtle changes. Are people acting differently at work? Is your industry shifting? Are your personal habits becoming unhealthy? Is your energy low in certain situations? Train yourself to detect changes before they become crises. The earlier you notice, the more options you have. Next, embody scurry by taking quick, small actions. You don't need a 10-step plan to begin. Want to change careers? Update your resume today. Want to improve your health? Take a walk tonight. Want to pivot your business? Launch a test version now. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of progress. The maze isn't waiting, and neither should you. This doesn't mean you act recklessly. Sniff and scurry don't run blindly. They act based on observation. The key is not to bypass thinking, but to avoid paralysis by overthinking. You've probably experienced this before. You think about a decision so much that you end up doing nothing. You gather more data, seek more opinions, delay again and again. Meanwhile, the opportunity passes. You don't need to eliminate fear. You need to act with it. Fear loses power when you start moving. Another way to strengthen your sniff and scurry mindset is to reflect on past experiences. When was a time in your life you noticed something was changing and didn't act fast enough? What were the consequences? And on the flip side, when did you act quickly and it paid off? These reflections help build your internal trust and intuition. The more you learn to move early and often, the less scary change becomes. And here's something else that's important. Sniff and scurry don't take it personally when the cheese moves. They don't see it as an attack. They don't get offended. They understand that change is part of the game. That mindset shift can set you free. If you stop viewing every disruption as a betrayal and start seeing it as a natural part of life's rhythm, you'll move with more confidence. Change isn't the enemy. Delay is. So, let me ask you, where in your life could acting fast make a difference? Is there an area where you've been hesitating, waiting for a sign, or hoping someone else would make the first move? What would happen if you stopped waiting and just acted today? What if you didn't need to feel 100% ready, but just needed to be willing to step forward? Sniff and scurry aren't flashy. They don't overcomplicate things. But that's exactly why their wisdom is so powerful. In a world that glorifies complexity, they remind us that instincts and action can be our greatest tools. They don't need certainty to move. They just need awareness and the courage to scurry ahead. As we journey deeper into this story, we'll soon meet Hem and Haw, the more complex, emotional, and very human parts of us. But before we go there, take a moment to honor your own sniff and scurry. They're inside you, waiting to guide you the moment you choose movement over hesitation. So, what's your next move? Section 4. Meet Hem and Haw. The complex side of us. Now that we've met Sniff and Scurry, the instinctual, action-driven parts of us, it's time to meet the more complicated characters in Who Moved My Cheese. These two don't scurry down the corridors of change with ease. Instead, they wrestle with it, doubt it, fear it, and often deny it. Meet Hem and Haw. These two little people, more human-like than their mouse counterparts, represent the emotional and psychological responses we all experience when life shifts unexpectedly. Hem clings tightly to the way things were, resisting change at all costs. Haw hesitates too, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty, but eventually learns to adapt and even embrace change. And between the two, we find a mirror to our own struggles with letting go and moving on. Hem represents that part of us that hates change. He resists it, not because he's a bad person or unintelligent, but because change threatens his sense of safety. Hem's core belief is that life should stay the same, especially if it was once good. So, when the cheese moves, Hem doesn't just pause, he panics. He believes it's a mistake, a conspiracy, or some kind of injustice. Rather than look for new cheese, he digs in his heels, convinced that if he just waits long enough, things will go back to the way they were. Sound familiar? Most people live as Hem in at least one area of their life. We deny changes in our health, relationships, careers, or industries because it's too painful to admit the truth. The cheese is gone, and it's not coming back. And instead of adapting, we stay stuck. We blame, we wait, we fantasize about the past. We build walls of comfort around us, hoping that change will just pass us by. But here's the reality. Life never goes backward. The maze doesn't stand still. And if we keep waiting for the old cheese to return, we risk starving ourselves, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. Haw, on the other hand, is the hopeful part of us. He, too, fears change at first. He's anxious, confused, and angry when the cheese disappears. But unlike Hem, Haw eventually begins to question his assumptions. He starts to laugh at his own fear, realizing that staying stuck is more dangerous than taking a step forward. Haw doesn't suddenly become fearless, but he does become curious. And that shift makes all the difference. He begins to explore the maze again, learns new lessons, and eventually discovers new cheese. Haw evolves. And in doing so, he becomes the hero of the story, not because he had all the answers, but because he dared to keep moving. So, why does this matter for you and me? Because change isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. Whether it's a global event, a personal crisis, or simply the natural evolution of life, we will all face moments where our cheese disappears. The question isn't whether change will happen. It's whether we'll respond like Hem or like Haw. Most of us start as Hem. We resist, deny, and dig in. But growth comes when we begin to shift, when we notice our resistance and choose, little by little, to lean into movement rather than fear. Let's look at a real-world example to ground this in reality. Picture a long-term employee named Diane. She's been working at a publishing company for over 25 years. She's reliable, knowledgeable, and respected. But now, the industry is changing. Digital platforms are replacing print. AI tools are streamlining editorial tasks. Younger hires bring in tech-savvy skills Diane never needed before. Management announces a digital transformation initiative, and Diane's role is on the chopping block unless she upskills. Hemming kicks in. Diane says things like, "I've always done it this way," or "This digital stuff is just a fad," or "I'm too old to learn new tricks." She waits, hoping the storm will pass, but it doesn't. Eventually, she has a choice: stay stuck and risk obsolescence, or adapt and evolve. After a lot of soul-searching, Diane chooses to haw. She signs up for online courses, joins a mentorship program, and even starts experimenting with digital publishing tools. It's not easy, but it's empowering. Within a year, Diane becomes a digital strategist for her company. She didn't just survive the change, she transformed through it. This is the power of Haw. He's not the fastest or the most fearless, but he's willing. And that willingness to shift mindsets is what allows him to thrive where others remain stuck. Haw teaches us that fear is natural, but letting it rule our lives is optional. He shows us that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about acting in spite of it. So, how do you begin to apply this in your own life? Start by identifying the areas where you might be acting like Hem. Be honest. Is there a situation you're clinging to because it once worked, even though it's clearly not working now? Maybe it's a job that's draining you, a relationship that's become toxic, a business model that's outdated, or a belief system that no longer serves your growth. Ask yourself, am I resisting change because I believe it's wrong, or because I'm scared? Then, take a page from Haw's journey. Begin with a mindset shift. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Replace fear-driven thoughts with curiosity-driven ones. Explore. Experiment. Take small steps toward something new, even if it feels uncomfortable. The first step doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be forward. One of the most powerful moments in the story is when Haw writes messages on the maze walls as he searches for new cheese. These messages become guiding principles, not just for himself, but for anyone who might come after him, including Hem if he ever chooses to move. One of those messages reads, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" That's a question worth sitting with. So here's your reflective challenge. Are you hemming in any area of your life? Where are you hoping the old cheese will come back instead of going out to find something new? What would it look like for you to stop waiting and start walking? Could you have a conversation you've been avoiding? Make a change you've been dreading? Or take a leap you've been secretly dreaming of? Remember, growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. Hem might feel safe, but he's stuck. Haw might feel scared, but he's moving. And movement, no matter how small, is always the beginning of transformation. We all start as Hem. but we don't have to stay there. The power to become Haw is in your hands, right now. So what will you choose? Because the cheese has already moved. The maze is already shifting. The only question is, will you? Section 5. Change happens. The cheese will be moved. Change is not something that might happen. It is something that will happen. This truth lies at the heart of every success story and every failure. Those who rise are often those who learn how to anticipate and adapt, while those who fall usually cling to the past, waiting for it to return. In the classic business fable, Who Moved My Cheese?, Dr. Spencer Johnson uses the metaphor of mice in a maze looking for cheese to illustrate how people often react to change. The lesson is simple but profound. The cheese will be moved. Your job is to keep moving with it. At its core, the principle is this: change is constant. It doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't care about your comfort zone. Whether it's a shift in the economy, a sudden personal event, or a technological breakthrough, change comes uninvited and often unannounced. The sooner we accept that change is inevitable, the faster we can train ourselves to respond to it with agility instead of resistance. Denying change doesn't stop it. It just ensures that we suffer when it arrives. Clinging to how things used to be is a recipe for pain, especially in a world that is evolving faster than ever before. Think about this. How much suffering in your life has come from trying to resist what was already happening? Maybe you held on too long to a job that was clearly becoming obsolete. Perhaps you stayed in a relationship that had run its course because you feared being alone. Or maybe you ignored market signals in your business because the old way had always worked. These moments of resistance stem from a misguided belief that stability is permanent, that once we find our cheese, it will stay in place forever. But the only real constant in life is change. Why does this matter so much? Because the mindset you bring to change will determine whether you grow or get left behind. If you expect life to stay the same, you'll constantly feel betrayed by its shifting nature. You'll feel blindsided when things don't go according to plan. But if you accept that change is part of the journey, you'll start to build mental and emotional muscles that help you thrive through uncertainty. You'll begin to see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity, a signal that it's time to evolve, to sharpen your skills, to reposition yourself. One of the best ways to apply this principle is to start practicing the art of anticipation. This doesn't mean living in fear of the future. It means developing a habit of scanning your environment, your career, your relationships, your industry, for signs of coming shifts. Are there emerging technologies in your field? Are your customers' preferences changing? Is your health giving you subtle warnings that need your attention? The people and businesses that thrive are not just reactive, they're proactive. They don't wait until change forces them to act. They prepare for it in advance. Let's look at a powerful real-world example: the retail industry. For decades, companies like Sears, Blockbuster, and Toys R Us dominated their sectors. They had massive brand recognition, loyal customer bases, and seemingly unstoppable momentum. But they failed to anticipate one of the biggest shifts in consumer behavior: online shopping. As companies like Amazon embraced technology and invested in convenience, personalization, and logistics, these traditional retailers continued to double down on physical stores and outdated models. By the time they realized the cheese had moved, it was too late. Their market share had been eaten, their customer loyalty eroded, and their relevance diminished. Contrast that with a company like Netflix. It started by mailing DVDs, but even at the height of that success, it saw the writing on the wall. Rather than clinging to a profitable model, Netflix disrupted itself. It moved to streaming, then original content, then global expansion. Each move came before it was absolutely necessary, which meant they were ready when change hit. They moved with the cheese, not after it had disappeared. The same principle applies on a personal level. Maybe your skills are becoming outdated in your profession. You can either ignore it and hope the world stops changing, or you can invest in learning, upskilling, or pivoting to a new path. Maybe your personal life is calling for a change, a new environment, healthier relationships, or better habits. The sooner you embrace the discomfort of change, the sooner you'll start moving toward growth. It's not easy, but it's essential. There's also a deeper reason why learning to handle change is so transformative. It teaches you resilience. When you train yourself to expect the unexpected, you stop being paralyzed by it. You stop wasting time wishing things were different and start focusing on what you can do. Change becomes a signal, not a setback. And when others are stuck in denial or caught off guard, you're already adjusting your sails, steering toward the new horizon. But let's be clear, this isn't about living in constant motion or abandoning stability entirely. There's value in routines, traditions, and consistency. The goal isn't to chase every trend or panic at every shift. The goal is to stay awake, to stay aware, and to stay adaptable. It's about anchoring yourself in purpose, not in plans. Because plans may change, but purpose can guide you through any storm. So here's your reflective question for today. What changes are on the horizon in your life or industry? Be honest. What signs are you ignoring? What truths are you avoiding because they make you uncomfortable? Maybe your market is shifting, your team is evolving, or your own priorities are changing. Don't wait for a crisis to force you into action. Start preparing now. Have the conversations. Learn the skills. Make the move. When the cheese gets moved, and it will, you won't be caught standing still. In the end, the people who win in life are not the strongest or even the smartest. They are the most adaptable. They are the ones who expect change, prepare for it, and move swiftly when it arrives. They don't curse the maze, they master it. They don't cry over missing cheese. They go out and find more. And with each shift, each pivot, they grow stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable. So remember this truth. Change is not your enemy. Stagnation is. And the faster you embrace the idea that the cheese will be moved, the faster you'll discover your true power. The ability to adapt, survive, and thrive no matter what life throws your way. Section 6. Anticipate change. Smell the cheese often. Success in any area of life, be it career, relationships, health, or finances, isn't just about how hard you work or how smart you are. It's also about how aware you are. In a world that changes faster than ever, the ability to anticipate shifts before they become storms is one of the greatest competitive advantages you can have. This is what smelling the cheese often really means. Regularly checking in with your environment, your circumstances, and yourself, so you're never caught off guard when change inevitably arrives. The world doesn't usually transform overnight. There are always signs. The question is, are you paying attention? The core principle here is simple, yet deeply powerful. Stay alert to subtle shifts before they turn into massive disruptions. Big changes almost always begin as whispers. A small drop in energy. A minor shift in customer behavior. A creeping dissatisfaction in a relationship. A slight tightening in your finances. These early warning signs are like the scent of cheese beginning to fade. If you don't stop to notice them, by the time you realize what's happening, the cheese, the opportunity, the stability, the comfort will already be gone. Why does this matter so much? Because early detection gives you time, and time is leverage. Time gives you options. It lets you choose rather than react. It gives you the power to pivot on your own terms instead of being forced into survival mode. People who wait until the crisis hits are often left scrambling, with limited resources and reduced clarity. But those who monitor their lives with curiosity and honesty can make subtle adjustments before drastic ones are necessary. They don't panic when change comes. They've been preparing all along. Take a moment to consider what areas of your life you're actively monitoring. Are you regularly checking in on the health of your relationships? Are you paying attention to how your industry is evolving? Are you tracking your physical and mental well-being? Too many people operate on autopilot, assuming that if things seem fine now, they'll stay that way. But life doesn't work like that. Your job, your marriage, your financial security, they can all shift over time, and often the first signs are invisible to those who aren't looking. That's why creating a habit of regular self-checks is one of the most effective tools you can develop. These check-ins don't have to be long or complicated, but they must be intentional. Ask yourself every week or month, what's working? What's not? What's starting to feel off, even if it hasn't broken yet? Do this in every major area of your life: relationships, finances, health, career, mindset. The goal is not to obsess or worry constantly, but to stay awake. The earlier you catch a potential problem, the easier it is to resolve. Let's ground this in a real-world example. Over the last decade, artificial intelligence, AI, went from a buzzword to a seismic shift in how industries operate. The signs were there early: automation tools replacing basic tasks, machine learning driving smarter algorithms, language models transforming how businesses communicate. While many people ignored the trend, assuming it was either irrelevant or years away from impact, others began to smell the cheese. They saw what was coming. They started learning prompt engineering, data science, content adaptation, and AI ethics before the wave hit full force. Today, those individuals aren't scrambling to catch up. They're leading the way, in high demand, and miles ahead of their peers. That's the power of anticipation. You don't have to know everything about the future. You just need to be awake enough to see its shadow forming. The same applies to financial habits. People who periodically assess their spending, savings, and income streams are more likely to catch financial leaks early. A rising debt level or dwindling emergency fund can be course-corrected if noticed in time. But ignore it for too long, and the situation escalates, leaving fewer options and more damage. Relationships work the same way. Small resentments, unmet needs, or growing distance rarely explode overnight. But if you never pause to check the emotional temperature, if you never ask, "How are we really doing?" those minor disconnects can fester into major fractures. The couples who stay together and thrive long-term don't wait until they're on the brink of separation to work on things. They communicate consistently, stay emotionally aware, and take small corrective actions along the way. Your health is another area where regular cheese sniffing pays dividends. Most chronic health issues don't appear out of nowhere. They build gradually through missed sleep, unchecked stress, poor diet, lack of movement. You don't wake up one day unhealthy. You drift there slowly, unless you're tuned in enough to stop it. That's why routine checkups, regular exercise, and mental health practices aren't just good habits. They're strategic moves. They allow you to catch problems early, while they're still manageable, rather than waiting for a wake-up call that could have been avoided. Now, here's the hard truth. Most people do sense the shifts, but they ignore them. Why? Because acknowledging change means accepting that something might need to be done. That action may be required, and action, especially when it disrupts comfort, is uncomfortable. It's easier to pretend everything is fine. It's easier to stay busy, distracted, or in denial. But easy in the short term often becomes costly in the long term. So here's your reflective challenge. What are you currently ignoring that could become a crisis? What part of your life has been quietly whispering for your attention? It might be a friendship that feels colder, a job that feels more fragile, a passion that feels more distant. It could be your energy levels, your bank account, your relationship with time. Whatever it is, bring it into the light. Look at it without fear or judgment. The sooner you face it, the more power you have to influence its outcome. This principle, anticipate change, doesn't require superhuman intuition. It requires awareness. It requires presence. And it requires the courage to look honestly at your life and ask, where is the cheese starting to move? When you do this consistently, you'll stop being surprised by life's shifts. You'll start catching them early. And that, more than almost anything else, will keep you resilient, resourceful, and ready. Because here's the truth. The people who succeed long-term don't just work harder, they work smarter. They don't just hustle blindly, they observe, adapt, and adjust. They know that in a fast-changing world, being alert is just as valuable as being talented. So build the habit, check in often, smell the cheese, and when it starts to move, don't panic, just move with it. Section 7. Adapt to change quickly. The faster you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese. In life, clinging to what once was can feel safe. There's comfort in the familiar, even if that familiarity has become stale or even toxic. But progress demands movement, and movement requires release. The longer you hold on to old cheese, a job, a belief, a relationship, a habit, the longer you delay discovering new opportunities, new growth, and a better version of yourself. The core truth is this: letting go is not a loss. It is a strategy for moving forward. The faster you let go of what no longer serves you, the sooner you open the door to what will. Adaptability is not simply a useful trait. It is a survival mechanism in a world that never stops evolving. Clinging to the past does not preserve it. It distorts it. When we refuse to let go, we end up idealizing moments that no longer exist, or relationships that no longer nourish us. We rewrite memories, pretending things were better than they were. But life isn't found in the rearview mirror. It's found in the road ahead. And to drive forward, you must be willing to release the handbrake of yesterday. Why is this so important? Because holding on to the past prevents you from fully embracing the future. You can't grasp new possibilities if both of your hands are tightly clutching what's behind you. Whether it's staying in a dead-end job out of fear of change, holding on to a failed business model, or carrying the weight of a relationship that drains rather than energizes you, every moment you spend resisting the need to move on is a moment you delay your evolution. Transformation cannot occur where stagnation is protected. Adapting quickly to change is not about recklessness or impatience. It's about decisiveness. It's about recognizing when the writing is on the wall and choosing to act rather than wait for the wall to collapse. It's about trusting that the pain of transition is temporary, but the cost of staying stuck can be permanent. Letting go doesn't mean you forget. It means you choose to grow. You honor what was, but you don't make it your prison. To apply this principle in your life, start with your mindset. Adaptation begins in your thoughts before it reaches your actions. You must first mentally detach from the idea that your worth or your identity is tied to the old cheese. That job title, that role you played, that routine you followed. It served you then, but it doesn't define you now. Begin to visualize what's next. Don't just let go of the past. Replace it with a vision of the future. This mental shift makes the emotional letting go easier because you're not just walking away, you're walking toward something better. Create a practice of visualizing the version of you that has already adapted. What does that person look like? How do they think? What do they do differently? This isn't daydreaming, it's a strategic rehearsal. The mind is powerful, and when you feed it images of who you want to become, it begins aligning your behavior accordingly. If you want to adapt quickly, you must begin living mentally in the world you are moving toward, not the one you're leaving behind. A real-world example of this is someone leaving a toxic relationship. The process of detachment isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. Often, people stay because the pain of loneliness seems greater than the discomfort of the dysfunction they're used to. They rationalize, justify, and wait for change that never comes. But the moment they choose to let go, not just by walking away, but by mentally cutting ties with the illusion, they make space for healing, peace, and eventually, love. They rediscover freedom and self-worth. They realize that what they thought was security was actually stagnation disguised as safety. This applies not only to relationships, but also to identity. Maybe you've built your life around a version of yourself that no longer fits. Maybe you were the dependable one, the achiever, the caretaker, or the rebel. But roles are not identities. When your life begins to change, your internal definition of self must evolve as well. Adaptability requires the courage to update your personal narrative. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? What part of me must be left behind so the rest can grow? Of course, letting go is rarely easy. It involves grief, fear, and sometimes guilt. That's natural. But growth does not happen without discomfort. In fact, discomfort is the signal that you're in the zone of transformation. The pain you feel when you release the old is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's confirmation you're moving. You are shedding the old skin so that something stronger can emerge. You are releasing the illusion of control so that you can embrace the reality of change. One of the most powerful things you can do during a season of change is ask yourself, what old cheese am I clinging to that's no longer serving me? Be brutally honest. Is it a friendship that's become one-sided? A business strategy that stopped working years ago? A dream that was never really yours to begin with? An outdated belief that tells you you're too old, too late, or not enough? Identifying the dead weight in your life is the first step to dropping it. Once you name the cheese, commit to the letting go. That might mean having hard conversations, making a plan, or simply drawing a line in your own mind that says, "This is no longer my story." And remember, letting go is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. You might have to remind yourself every morning why you walked away, and every evening what you're walking toward. But over time, as the new becomes familiar, the old will lose its grip. Adapting quickly doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you don't let fear make your decisions. It means you trust that new cheese exists and that it's waiting for you to find it. It means you believe that your best days are not behind you, but ahead of you, and that the sooner you step into the unknown, the sooner you'll find the breakthrough you've been waiting for. So don't wait for rock bottom. Don't wait until everything is broken to admit it's time to let go. Pay attention. Act early. Move fast. Because the faster you let go of old cheese, the sooner you'll find the new. And the new isn't just different. It's better, richer, and more aligned with who you are becoming. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. And adaptation? That's your superpower. Use it. Section 8. Move with the cheese. Enjoy change. Change is often portrayed as something to survive. We brace for it like a storm, hoping to endure the discomfort and come out the other side intact. But what if change wasn't just something to tolerate? What if it could be enjoyed? What if, instead of fearing the unknown, we could see it as a playground for growth, curiosity, and unexpected joy? That's the mindset shift at the heart of this lesson. Move with the cheese. Enjoy change. The core principle here is not just about accepting change, but learning to find excitement in it. Because once you reframe change as an adventure, it becomes less of a threat and more of a gift. The truth is, resisting change leads to fear. When you view change as something dangerous or destabilizing, your mind goes into survival mode. You cling to routine. You resist taking risks. You shrink instead of expand. But when you embrace change, you unlock an entirely different kind of energy, an energy of possibility. You start asking, what could this lead to, instead of, what am I losing? You become curious, open, and resilient. Life becomes less about staying safe and more about discovering what's possible. Why does this mindset matter so much? Because life is change. Everything around you is constantly in motion. Your body, your relationships, your environment, your career, the world. Stability is not the default. Movement is. So, if your peace depends on everything staying the same, you're setting yourself up for constant frustration. But if you build your mindset around flexibility, if you learn to move with the cheese, you become emotionally bulletproof. You stop dreading what's next and start dancing with it. The shift happens when you start to see uncertainty not as chaos, but as creativity. Think about it. What is change, really? It's life's way of giving you a blank canvas. It's the shaking of the snow globe that reveals new patterns, new paths, and new parts of yourself. You may not always get to choose the change, but you always get to choose your response. And the most powerful response is to lean in, to move with the change rather than against it. One of the best ways to apply this in your life is to reframe uncertainty as adventure. Instead of asking, what might go wrong? Ask, what might I discover? Adventure, by its very nature, includes risk, surprise, and the unfamiliar. But it also includes wonder, growth, and transformation. You can't have a great adventure if you refuse to leave home base. You have to step out, stumble a little, get your bearings, and realize that the world is much bigger and more beautiful than you thought. Let's consider a real-world example, a family moving to a new country. On the surface, this kind of change can be overwhelming. New language, new culture, new schools, new routines. It's easy to see why many families would dread such a disruption. But the ones who thrive are the ones who embrace it as an adventure. They explore the streets, try unfamiliar foods, make new friends, and immerse themselves in the experience. And over time, the foreign becomes familiar, the fear becomes excitement, and the move becomes a life-defining chapter filled with memories, connection, and personal growth. You don't have to move across the world to apply this mindset. Change is happening in your life right now, whether it's in your job, your relationships, your health, or your inner world. You might be entering a new season of parenthood, starting a business, changing careers, or stepping into a new role you didn't expect. Whatever it is, you can either fight it or you can flow with it. And flowing doesn't mean passivity. It means participation, It means showing up with eyes wide open, ready to learn, ready to grow, and ready to be surprised. Here's how you make that shift tangible. Practice mental flexibility. When change hits, instead of saying, "This wasn't supposed to happen," say, "Let's see where this leads." Instead of longing for how things used to be, get curious about how they could be better. Start asking empowering questions. What new skills could I learn? What new people could I meet? What parts of myself might I discover that I've never seen before? These questions open doors in your mind that fear tries to keep shut. It also helps to romanticize your journey a little. Yes, really. Make your life feel like a story worth telling. If this were a movie, what would your character do next? How would they rise to the occasion? How would they grow from this twist in the plot? When you see yourself as the hero of your own adventure, change becomes the catalyst, not the curse. It becomes the plot twist that pushes you toward becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. Don't underestimate the role of joy in this process. Change can be challenging, but it can also be fun. You get to try new things, meet new people, discover new places, and reimagine your own identity. There's joy in novelty. There's delight in progress. There's excitement in stepping into the unknown and realizing you're stronger than you thought. When you move with the cheese, when you embrace change with an open heart, you create room for joy, creativity, and unexpected success. Of course, none of this means you won't feel fear. You will. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep moving despite it. It's the inner voice that says, "This is unfamiliar, but I trust that something good can come from it." Over time, you'll build evidence. You'll look back and realize that some of the best things in your life came from changes you didn't expect or even want at the time. You'll start to trust the process, not just because you understand it, but because you've lived it. So here's your reflective challenge. What new opportunity could change open up for you? Maybe it's time to pivot in your career. Maybe it's the chance to deepen a relationship, start a new project, or move to a place that energizes you. Maybe change is pushing you to finally address an area of your life you've been neglecting. Whatever it is, shift your perspective from resistance to readiness. Say yes to the journey. Say yes to discovery. Because in the end, life doesn't reward those who cling to the past. It rewards those who embrace the moment, those who move with the cheese, those who say, "I don't know what's next, but I'm excited to find out." And as you do that, again and again, you'll not only adapt to change, you'll thrive in it. You'll learn that the unknown isn't something to fear, it's something to explore. And the more you explore, the richer your life becomes. Section 9. Learn to laugh at your fear. The power of perspective. Fear thrives in silence and seriousness. It loves when you take it at face value, inflate it with drama, and allow it to control your decisions. But the moment you shine a light on fear, especially with humor, something changes. It begins to shrink. You start to see it not as an undefeatable monster, but as a nervous little thought, dressed in costume. That's the power of perspective. When you learn to laugh at your fear, you don't become reckless, you become resilient. Humor and humility don't minimize your challenges. They maximize your capacity to handle them. The core principle here is simple but powerful. Don't take yourself too seriously. Fear feeds on ego, the belief that failure would somehow destroy your identity or reputation. But when you bring humor into the equation, you loosen that grip. You remind yourself that mistakes are human, that setbacks are part of the journey, and that sometimes life is just plain ridiculous. Laughter becomes a tool, not to ignore your fears, but to take away their authority. Why does this matter so much? Because growth is messy. It's clumsy. It's full of missteps and awkward moments and trial and error. If you expect perfection, you'll never start. And if you can't laugh at yourself along the way, you'll burn out from the weight of your own expectations. People who grow the most aren't the ones who avoid fear. They're the ones who can smile at it. They stumble, they fall, they get back up, and sometimes they even enjoy the absurdity of it all. Perspective is everything. You can either see fear as a signal to stop or as a signal to look closer. Often, what we fear isn't the thing itself, it's the story we've told ourselves about it. For example, the fear of public speaking might not be about the crowd. It might be about the idea of looking stupid. The fear of quitting your job might not be about money. It might be about admitting you're not happy in the path you once chose. But when you bring these fears into the light, when you write them down or talk them out or even laugh at them, you reclaim control. You stop being the victim of your thoughts and start becoming the observer. A powerful way to apply this in your own life is to journal your fears and then challenge yourself to find the comedy in them. Write them out, word for word, as if they were a monologue from a nervous stand-up comic. Let the absurdity surface. For example, if you're afraid of launching a business, write something like, "What if I post my website and the entire internet comes together to collectively mock my pricing page? What if Jeff Bezos sees it and personally emails me to say, 'Wow, that's embarrassing'?" Sounds silly, right? But that's the point. Fear loses its grip when you take away its seriousness. You start to see that the worst-case scenarios your brain creates are often just exaggerated fictions. This technique doesn't just work in theory, it works in the real world. Take the example of a speaker who bombed on stage. Imagine preparing for weeks, crafting your talk, rehearsing every gesture, visualizing success, only to get up there and completely freeze. The audience is confused. You mumble your way through and leave the stage humiliated. It's every speaker's nightmare. But now, imagine that same person deciding to own the experience. They tell the story at future events. They laugh about how bad it was. They turn it into a signature moment, not just to make people laugh, but to show that failure isn't fatal. That speaker transforms a disaster into a lesson and ends up more relatable, more human, and more powerful as a result. That's the power of laughing at fear. It turns failure into fuel. It takes the pressure off. It reminds you that even your worst moments are just moments, not the full story. And often, those moments become the most memorable parts of your journey. Not because they were smooth, but because they were real. Here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come from being fearless. It comes from dancing with fear and realizing it can't actually break you. It comes from falling down, laughing, and getting back up, because you know that growth is messy, and messy is okay. The people who make it to the top aren't the ones who avoid embarrassment. They're the ones who embrace it and keep going anyway. You don't have to be a comedian to apply this mindset. You just have to be willing to laugh at yourself once in a while. When you catch yourself spiraling in fear, pause and ask, if this were a scene in a movie, would it be tragic or would it be hilarious? That question alone can reframe your emotional state. It can shift you from tension to release, from dread to curiosity. Let's bring it back to you. What fear could you laugh at today to loosen its grip? Maybe it's the fear of being judged, of not being good enough, of failing in front of others. Maybe it's the fear that everyone else has it figured out except you. Now picture that fear talking to you in a whiny, exaggerated voice, throwing a tantrum like a toddler who didn't get dessert. Is that really who you want making your decisions? Instead, bring in your wiser self, the one who knows that most of what you fear is temporary, exaggerated, and survivable. The one who knows that even if you mess up, you'll still be loved, still be growing, still be okay. That version of you doesn't just handle change. They enjoy the ride. They find meaning in the mistakes and humor in the hard moments. Fear may never completely go away, but it doesn't need to. Its presence doesn't mean stop. It means step in, smile, and say, "Let's do this anyway." When you learn to laugh at your fear, you turn down its volume and turn up your power. You become lighter, freer, and more fearless, not because life got easier, but because you got bolder. So don't wait for courage to arrive wrapped in perfection. Invite it in, even if it shows up nervous and shaky. Let it laugh with you, not at you. And remember, the version of you who can giggle through the growing pains is the version who's already winning. Fear may be part of the journey, but laughter, perspective, and resilience are what carry you through. Section 10. Writing on the Wall. The Lessons to Remember. When all is said and done, when the dust of change settles and we're left standing in the new reality we once feared, what remains with us is not the exact details of what changed, but what we learned from it. Every shift in life, every uncomfortable stretch of growth, every step into the unknown offers us something priceless. Insight. But those insights often fade unless we make a conscious decision to remember them. That's the heart of this final section. Writing on the wall is about cementing your lessons, turning them into personal truths, and revisiting them until they become part of who you are. The core principle here is simple but profound. The moral lessons are always present, if you're paying attention. Change is a teacher. Fear is a guide. Uncertainty is a mirror. The story of the mice and the little people in Who Moved My Cheese isn't just about navigating a literal maze, it's a metaphor for our own emotional and mental landscapes. Every twist in our personal or professional lives is a chance to either resist and suffer or reflect and grow. But growth isn't automatic. It's intentional. And the best way to make that growth stick is to capture the lessons as they come. Why does this matter so much? Because we are forgetful by nature. We return to old habits. We ignore hard-won insights. We fall back into patterns of fear or denial. That's not because we're weak, it's because we're human. But repetition creates remembrance. Just like ancient cave paintings or modern motivational posters, writing your insights somewhere you'll see them brings them back to life every day. The more often you see the truth, the more deeply it embeds in your thinking, and the more likely you are to act in alignment with it. This is why writing on the wall matters, literally and metaphorically. Create physical reminders of your internal commitments. Put sticky notes on your mirror. Add affirmations to your phone background. Paint your favorite mindset quote on your office wall. Make it visible. Make it inescapable. When the lesson is staring you in the face, it's harder to forget it. And when it's part of your daily environment, it becomes part of your identity. This isn't just self-help fluff. It's a practical system. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine a startup founder in the early stages of building her business. She's facing rejection, setbacks, and days of uncertainty. Every day is a gamble, and the emotional roller coaster is real. So what does she do? She buys a big whiteboard and starts writing quotes that keep her grounded. Phrases like progress, not perfection, done is better than perfect, or you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the next step. These aren't just decorations. They're anchors. They're daily reminders that the fear and chaos are temporary, but the mission is not. And this isn't limited to entrepreneurs. A parent, a student, a teacher, an athlete, or anyone in a season of transition can benefit from visible truth. Whether it's on a vision board, a digital dashboard, or scribbled on a napkin taped to your fridge, your environment influences your mindset. Don't leave your most important lessons to memory. Write them where they can echo back to you on the hard days. So, how do you start applying this? Begin by asking yourself, what have I learned from the changes I've experienced? Go through each of the key ideas from this journey. Change is inevitable. Deny it and suffer, or accept it and grow. Anticipate change, pay attention to the early signs. Adapt quickly. The faster you let go, the faster you move forward. Enjoy change. Reframe it as a chance for adventure. Laugh at fear. Humor gives you power over what tries to hold you back. And now, capture the lesson. Make it part of your daily reality. Reflect on which of these resonated most deeply. Which one made you pause, nod, or feel something stir within you? That's your truth. That's the writing you need on your wall. The message that whispers strength when you're tired. The phrase that guides your decisions when fear creeps in. The line that reminds you who you are and what you're capable of, especially when things feel uncertain. One effective practice is to create a wall of truth. It doesn't have to be literal. It can be a journal, a document, a screensaver, or an actual wall. But fill it with what you've learned. Add to it often. Update it as you grow. Make it a living document of your evolution. That way, when life moves your cheese again, and it will, you won't be scrambling in confusion. You'll have a map of your own past resilience, a collection of your greatest insights to guide you forward. Even better, share your writing on the wall with others. Wisdom multiplies when it's passed on. Share a favorite quote with a friend going through a tough time. Post your insight on social media. Discuss it with your team. Make it part of your family culture. When your environment echoes truth, growth becomes easier, because you're not carrying the message alone. And now we come to the final reflection. What one lesson from this story do you want to live by daily? Don't overthink it. Don't try to choose the perfect one. Choose the one that speaks to your current season. Is it the courage to change? The readiness to adapt? The ability to laugh at your fear? Pick it. Write it. Live it. And when the maze changes again, when life throws another curveball, you'll be ready. This final step is not about closure. It's about continuity. The story of change never really ends. The cheese keeps moving. The paths keep shifting. But the person who has written their truth on the wall walks through it all with a steadier heart. They don't just react. They respond. They don't just survive change. They evolve through it. So grab your pen. Choose your phrase. Write it on your wall, real or symbolic. And let it guide you, not just when change comes, but every single day. Because life rewards those who learn, remember, and act. And your wall, it's not just decoration. It's a declaration of who you are, of what you believe, and of where you're going next. Section 11. Your cheese journey. Now it's your turn to move. Life doesn't come with a roadmap. It twists, turns, surprises us, and sometimes blindsides us completely. But if there's one truth we've circled back to throughout this journey, it's this: change is constant. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait until we're ready. It just moves the cheese. Whether you're a creature of habit, a dreamer, a planner, or someone just trying to get through the week. Change will find you. And when it does, the only question that matters is this: will you move with it? We started with the image of a maze, a metaphor for life's uncertainty. Some paths lead to comfort, others to dead ends. Some days we feast on cheese, other days we wander through corridors of confusion. But throughout the story of Who Moved My Cheese? Component placement. A message rings clear. The key to thriving isn't in knowing the map. It's in being willing to move. It's in being willing to leave behind what no longer serves you, face the unknown, and adapt with grace. That's not just the story of mice and men. It's the story of us all. And here's the best part. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to have every answer or feel confident every step of the way. You just need to be willing to take the next step. You just need to move. Movement, not mastery, is what sets transformation in motion. One decision, one conversation, one risk, one shift in mindset. It doesn't have to be a leap. It just has to be forward. Maybe your cheese is a dream you've delayed, a conversation you've avoided, a career move you've feared, a truth about yourself you've resisted. Maybe your cheese is peace after chaos, healing after heartbreak, or rediscovering your purpose after years of settling. Whatever it is, your next move doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. The maze isn't a trap. It's an invitation. And every twist you explore brings you closer to the version of yourself you were meant to become. So here's your moment of decision. Will you stay in the empty hallways of yesterday, clinging to what was? Or will you step forward into the maze of possibility? Let's reflect. What did this story stir in you? Maybe you saw yourself in him, resisting the change, hoping things would go back to the way they were. Or maybe you related to Haw, hesitant at first, but slowly learning to laugh at fear, to imagine a better future, to step into the unknown. Perhaps you saw yourself in the mice, Sniff and Scurry, whose simplicity of action reminded us that instinct and adaptation are sometimes more valuable than overthinking. Wherever you saw yourself, know this: your cheese journey is uniquely yours. No one else walks your path. No one else feels your fears or holds your hopes. And that's why this moment matters. Because only you can decide to move. Only you can rewrite the story. It doesn't matter how long you've waited, how many chances you missed, or how many failures you've carried. What matters is what you choose now. Let this be the week you stop watching life from the sidelines. Let this be the week you take one bold step toward your new cheese. Send that email. Make that phone call. Sign up for that class. Start that side project. End that toxic pattern. Say yes to something that scares you, in the best way. The maze isn't waiting for perfection. It's waiting for your movement. And don't do it alone. Share your journey. Talk to someone about what you're changing, what you're learning. In fact, here's your call to action. Like this video if it resonated with you, comment with your favorite insight from this story, and share it with someone who might be stuck in their own hallway of hesitation. Subscribe for more content like this, because growth is a journey, and you don't have to walk it alone. What was your favorite lesson? Was it about the inevitability of change? The importance of anticipating it? The freedom that comes with letting go? Or maybe it was the reminder to laugh at fear and write your truth on the wall. Whatever it was, don't let it fade. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see every day. Let it guide you the next time the cheese moves, because it will move again. Here's your final challenge. This week, take one bold step toward your new cheese. Don't wait for the stars to align. Don't wait until fear vanishes. Move while your heart is still pounding. Move while your voice is still shaking. Move while the maze still looks like a mystery. Because action is what reveals the path. You don't need a map. You need a mission and the courage to begin. Let's be honest. Staying stuck is easy. Complaining is easy. Wishing, regretting, overanalyzing, those are all default settings. But movement, that's rare. That's brave. And that's what separates those who stay trapped in old patterns from those who find new cheese again and again. Your life is not meant to be a museum of past disappointments. It's meant to be a living, breathing, evolving adventure. One where you explore, adapt, stumble, learn, and grow. The maze will change, the cheese will move. But you get to decide whether you grow bitter or better, whether you shrink or stretch, whether you freeze or move. You are not too late, you are not too broken, you are not too lost. You are right on time and ready for the next step. So here we are, at the end of this chapter, but truly, the beginning of your next one. Take a breath, look ahead, feel the fear, and step forward anyway. Because the maze of possibility is vast, and your cheese is out there, waiting for you. And remember, you can wait in the empty hallways of yesterday, or move forward into the maze of possibility. The choice is yours. Now go move.